You're listening to Tabletop and Beyond, the Guild 9 gaming podcast covering board games to war games and beyond.
All right, everybody, welcome back to our favorite podcast, Tabletop and Beyond. I'm your host, Justin, and I'm here with my scruffy-looking nerf herders, Jason and Dan.
What's going on, guys?
I'm extra scruffy tonight.
Yes, he is. He demonstrated this by rubbing that scruff into the microphone. It was great.
Right there. This one? Yeah, sorry. It's my first and last scruff scratch.
Well, we've got a show ready for you tonight. We had sort of discussed this as one of our topics a couple episodes ago. We're going to get into Kickstarter and sort of what it means for the gaming community. But before we get into that, we want to address our Geek Week. So, Jason, why don't you kick us off?
My Geek Week, unlike the past ones where I was kind of talking about gaming-related movies and stuff, this one I got sucked into another video game that's been around for about 3 years. So No Man's Sky finally came on sale on the Xbox. It's been on sale on other platforms, the PS4, which it first came on, and PC for a little bit. But it finally hit the price point that I've been waiting for on the Xbox. And Justin, you pointed it out, and I was like, oh, there it is. There's the price I was looking for. So I pulled the trigger, and I have been going to bed at like 2 a.m. I'm back into the, okay. So I need 5 sodium oxide bars mixed with 3, and it's just nonstop grind and, that addictive Minecraft in space feeling.
Yeah.
And then just the immensity of space. Like, I played Elite Dangerous since it came out, before it came out, actually. I played the 1980 version, 84 version of Elite Dangerous, 83, 84, something like that. And then the latest, not Elite, but yeah, and then the latest version that's been out on the current kind of generation systems. I just love giant space kind of simulators. And while No Man's Sky is definitely much more arcadey, it's been what's consuming most of my Geek Week this past little bit.
Would you say that that's another idea that I presented to you?
I don't know. No Man's Sky has been, because I have a PS4 and I almost bought it when it first came out. But something had me hold off, and I'm glad it did, because that game had a lot of hype up front that it did not produce on what they said they were going to produce.
Right.
For several years after, a couple years after it was out, did they finally get kind of the foundation they needed to implement, kind of the mass online cloud connected game that they have.
Which is interesting, because there's a lot of games that seem to be doing that, right? Which is they're promising something, and the product that they deliver isn't 100% what everybody assumed it was based on, the marketing that they had. Yeah. And so that's when video game companies sort of get in trouble, right? They're pushing to release, they're trying to get it out there, and they know the product that they want in the end, but they just can't deliver it when they said they were going to. And then it kind of messes with the community a little bit. Like, they get upset, they don't want to play it for a while, and then come around like 2 or 3 years later, people are like, oh, no, it's actually a really good game. And I'm going to be honest, it took me a really good friend at work to tell me, like, no, that game is awesome, you need to get it, because I had heard all the terrible bad things,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So Destiny is another game kind of like that, and this game has a very similar interface. If you're familiar with Destiny, the interface is very kind of has a feel for that through the menu system, at least through the menu system. Mm-hmm. But it was the same way. You ask many people that have played Destiny for the umpteen years that the game was out, and they say, "Yeah, I played the Destiny beta the whole time it was released." And then Destiny 2 came out, and basically Destiny 2 had all the buzzes and the bells that everyone was expecting from the first one. And if you play Destiny 2, you think, oh, this is it. This is the game that we've all kind of been waiting for. It's just that it took, umpteen years. I think it was 2 or 3, right?
Yeah.
To actually get to Destiny 2. And by that point, everyone had kind of already been like, we're done with this. And, kind of a lot of people had kind of moved on. I guess that's kind of the same thing here with No Man's Sky, but it's a good. I'm playing it now. It definitely has overcome a lot of those issues that were plaguing the game from the early days.
Awesome.
So I recommend it.
I too got it. Yeah. So spoiler alert. I have also been staying up too late.
I don't know if the sale's still on. I think it was $25.
I saw it on my Facebook feed the other day, so it's or just today.
Yeah, it's still going.
Yeah.
Not a bad price considering I've probably already put 25 hours into it.
Yeah, exactly. $1 an hour.
Yep. That's how I rate my games for quality. It's like Elder Scrolls, Oblivion.
Yeah.
Like that game cost me. Like I think I netted money on that game. It's just
they actually started paying me to play it.
Yeah, they did. They were like, "Whoa, look at this guy! He's got like 450 hours in this game."
He's amazing.
All right, Dan. What about you? What's your Geek Week look like?
For budding DMs or GMs that have a hard time learning how to explain things, I highly recommend finding a really cool action show on Netflix that has the descriptive audio text, or like on Disney Plus. So I've been listening to The Mandalorian as I've been doing other things with the descriptive audio text, and it's just a really great way to describe action very succinctly and tightly, and it's just really it's a really cool mindset to get your brain into for DMing and GMing. So pick something that you like, and hopefully the audio text is recorded by a person, not by Siri, because they have a couple of those out there that are a little more annoying to listen to. But it's a great way to that's one thing you can do with streaming video that has kind of an RPG application, and that could be very useful and fun. My other Geek Week is I'm still highly addicted to Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. I'm resisting spending money on it, but it is a daily test of my will not to put money into that game, because you can buy resources with real money. And
this is the one you stayed up late. This is going back to our first episode, I think,
just
right?
No, yeah. No, I've been acquiring things too and putting things together and going, man, I gotta acquire more of these resources so I can update, so I can get Boba Fett his latest armor. It's crap. So don't do it. Don't do it, kids. Don't get started. Just say no to any game that has microtransactions, because they're designed to release dopamine on a very quick basis to get you hooked. I also completed, I'm waiting for one last book to come in for the entire FFG hardbound collection, except for one book they've yet to publish, which is on the boat, and another one which is in the mail. I have them all. Much to my wife's chagrin. She's like, "What did you just do?" I'm like, "They're going out of print. I know they're going out of print. Don't argue with me. They're going out of print."
You should have told her to listen to our last episode, and then she'd be fine with it.
I perished the thought.
So wait, can we back up a minute?
Yeah.
What gave you the idea to listen to the descriptive dialogue when you were watching something on TV? Because I swear I see that and think, oh, that's for old people.
It could be a
for old
could have been
people?
another
Is that what you said?
Yeah, or people who
are blind.
I guess, yeah, people who are maybe vision impaired. That's true.
Visually impaired people. But if you're listening to an action show, it's like the Mandalorian whips out his blaster, fires at the alien, picks him up and drops him with a solar plex. Like, you have to be real punchy and crispy, and it takes a lot of thoughtful. It's the exact opposite of what I'm doing now. I'm using too many words to explain my idea. If you want to explain action in a very quick, succinct way, listen to an action show, and you can watch it too. I just have it on while I'm doing other things like the dishes or cleaning up or something like that. But
it's a great idea. I just
want very cool.
What gave you the idea? Like, I think
it was another RPG podcast, I think.
Okay, gotcha.
But I'd never actually done it. I'd heard it years ago, and I finally got around to doing it because I wanted to go back through Mandalorian again. But because so much of it is visual, you can't like do another thing. So I was like, oh yeah, I'll just turn on the descriptive text, and it's cool. It's cool. It makes you think about, man, if I was the perfect GM, I could describe this battle in very short sentences in a very impactful way.
I guess it's cool because if you turn that on and then you also turn on subtitles, does it show the descriptive text in the subtitles?
No, no, just what they're saying. Just what they're saying.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. That's very cool. I mean, gosh, not every show has those kinds of things. So I know, like, because we turn subtitles on all the time just because we've got so many kids and dogs in the house. Sometimes it's just hard to follow what's happening.
Yeah,
so
you
we'll
gotta
turn
move
subtitle.
out.
Yeah.
By yourself.
But and then sometimes some shows you watch, like I can't think of one off the top of my head, but sometimes you'll watch some shows and it's just the way the actors are portraying the characters. Like sometimes my wife and I have to rewind, like, what is he saying? What did he say?
Yeah, what's
like
that mumbling?
He's mumbling. Like, you got to turn subtitles on to see it. But that's a really cool concept to get some ideas for how to describe things. And I might have to try that.
Just give it a go and make sure it's something you like, or something you've already seen before. Because it could be a little on the distracting side if you're trying to visually take it in.
Yeah, I guess, and to make, to emphasize the point that Justin was saying, that I guess this was mainly intended for people, who for disabilities, right, who still want to engage in kind of the action of the show, but can't protect and kind of with all the audio visual sensors that we have. So this is a cool way to kind of employ that in another way. Yeah,
just give it a listen, give it a try, and if it's annoying, don't do it. But if you all are running games, it's more useful than you would expect.
Cool. Very cool. All right. Well, our friend Justin is muted right now, so while he's muted, we'll just kind of jump into the next thing here.
Dang it! I was talking the whole time.
I thought you were in the bathroom.
Oh my gosh! I made a totally hilarious clip about.
I'm sure it was funny.
It was awesome.
I'm sure it was.
I said, I expect your report on the alternative dialogue from Friends the next time you watch it.
Alternative dialogue.
Ross rolls his eyes.
Yeah, exactly.
Rachel rolls her eyes. Courtney Cox's character puts up her hands. Exasperated.
Joey smiles coyly.
Oh, yeah, not necessary.
Dumbfoundedly.
The Mandalorian ones are really good. And the funny thing is it doesn't stop to explain anything. It'll say, Erodian pulls out a blaster, but it doesn't say, Erodian is a green-faced alien with black buttons. It's like, if you're a Star Wars fan, it's talking to you. It's going straight to the shorthand of the least possible words to tell you what's going on.
Cool.
Awesome. All right, so now that I'm unmuted, my hobby week include a little bit of No Man's Sky. I got some hobbying done. I finished the heads on my Ardboy force that I'm kind of redoing because I hated their heads. So I did some hobbying there and did some basing. Happy to get that stuff done. Just, getting ready to paint. I'm excited to do that.
Can I interrupt you? Can I interrupt you to brag about you and to Jim real fast? For those who are aware of who Matt Mercer is in the gaming community, Justin and our buddy Jim put together a 3D mini that had a multi-headed Hydra, and they had magnetic heads that could be chopped off. When you chopped off the head, it had all the gooey insides, and Jim printed it, and Justin painted it, and it's a work of art. And Matt Mercer tweeted about it and took a photo of it. So it's pretty awesome that our cool, sad little micro obscure gaming group, intersected with the gods of Mount Olympus of RPGs.
It's true. It was nice to get that. So nice that he put it up on there. I'm glad that my little thing got on there. And if you guys want to see any of the minis, I usually post work in progress on my Instagram. It's at El Renegato. And I'll post it in the notes of the show if anybody's interested in following and checking it out.
And I guess the key to the success here is just lack of sleep, right?
Yeah, Jason asked me at one point, how do I get a lot of the stuff done that I do? And I say, when do I sleep? Yeah. And my wife tells me all the time I need to sleep more, so I should probably do that.
You can sleep when you're dead, man.
I know. I will say, though...
Yeah.
I will say, though, that my dreams is where I come up with some of my best ideas.
So, you could probably get some scary dreams, man.
I don't even want to go. This isn't going to turn into a dream podcast. I could fill out a whole podcast.
Let's
I could.
My dreams are scary because Justin's in them.
So speaking of idea, let me kind of move on to this real quick. I was watching an episode of Battlestar Galactica the other day because I'm gonna be honest. I've never completed the series. I know. So
wait, the old one or the new one?
The new one. Don't spoil it for me. You probably already have when we played Battlestar Galactica together.
Yeah, I was
Anyway.
a Cylon.
Yeah, exactly.
Spoiled.
Spoiler alert, they're Cylons. Anyway, I was watching an episode of Battlestar Galactica. It was the one where they found Kobol, right? Which was sort of the ancient planet that was going to lead them back to Earth. Okay?
It was called Kolob on the show.
No, it's Cobol.
No, it's Kobol.
Cobol.
Kobol.
Yeah. Kolob, right? Just
Yeah.
a couple letters.
Don't do that. We're not having this conversation. Back away slowly.
So anyway, the story is that like these guys were going down as like sort of an away party. They were going to check out the surface of the planet, and they ended up crashing because they got shot down by Cylons, and they ended up on the planet, and it was this planet that was habitable, but they were brand new to it. They had nothing there. So shortly after I watched that, I said, that sounds like an awesome beginning to an RPG. So I posted in our Guild 9 Gaming group chat about an RPG, creating an RPG that basically a spaceship of humans crashes to this habitable planet, and the goal is to survive. And then once you survive, then to expand out there. Like maybe, once you kind of meet some people or tribes of people, like you do some things for them and get in their good graces, and all of a sudden you find out that they're warring against another tribe, or, you come across ancient artifacts that increase your understanding of the planet, or, and the goal is to survive and maybe eventually get off of the planet, but there's going to be a lot of steps in between there. And I thought that sounded like a pretty cool RPG to actually write and develop, and so I kind of had a good idea to start that.
Yeah.
Rock and roll, dude.
Yeah, so step one that I wanted to do is that I got this game off of Drive-Thru RPG. It's called Microscope. And what it is it's a world-building game. Like, basically, you define some parameters of history, and then you take turns to inject either periods or events or specific scenes that happen within your parameter of history. So, like, injecting a period might be like the rise and fall of the Roman Empire or something like that, but in your own world. And then, an event might be the assassination of Julius Caesar or, the likewise type of thing. So, I gathered some of our good friends in Guild 9 Gaming, and we are starting, in fact, I kind of kicked it off today. We started an online version of this where we're going to be going through and creating the whole backstory of this planet that this group of space travelers is going to crash onto. So that'll help give me like sort of the fodder to write and develop the RPG and kind of unlock different areas or unlock different histories that might, give the players access to magic or to, technology or, understanding the people better that they can, then have better alliances or something like that. So I think it sounds like a lot of fun. I'm excited that we're sort of doing this collectively. I think it's going to go in a really cool direction that none of us have. It's just going to be a fun jam together,
Yeah, that reminds me there is the game Factorio, which came out around circa 2012, or began around 2012. I think, actually, I just pulled a Wikipedia page up. I think 2016 is when it kind of went on Steam, greenlighted on Steam maybe. But I think the concept there is that you've kind of crashed into this planet, and it's a RTS game, a real-time strategy game. Like buildcraft, industrial craft, I guess, but whatever. The goal there, right, is that you start from nothing on this planet. And you have to kind of slowly start to build your industry back up, with the winning the game is by creating a rocket that you then launch to get back off of the planet's surface. So it's kind of a cool thing. Not at all the same setting as playing the kind of game that you're kind of creating here. In this case, it's more of a living the lives and well, the standard thing that RPG does. Whereas this is just an RTS game. But the concept there that you're stuck on this planet. You got to find a way to either get off it or make do with what you got.
Yeah, make a new life almost, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I like the idea of this RPG because it's like you have advanced individuals, like in terms of technology and science and philosophy, maybe, you know, and intellect, landing on a primitive planet. And so those skills of being a computer engineer all of a sudden mean nothing. Becoming a weapons expert with laser guns all of a sudden means nothing, right? Like, you have to start from scratch. So that explains why you're level 1 on this planet, right? Like, the little boy in the village that you may discover may be a level 10 because guess what? He can start a fire, he can shoot a bow, he can ride a horse. He can speak languages on the planet. You know what I mean? And you don't have any of those skills. So you got to learn them, you know? I think that's kind of an interesting concept.
I think I'm probably going to get this wrong and people are going to get angry and go nuts, but years ago when I used to read like the Warhammer 40K books a little bit here and there, I think the origin of the Dark Angels was, you know, the empire of man had spread throughout kind of the universe or the galaxy, the universe, whatever. And these guys went to a certain place of space and something happened. There was a rift that broke, you know, whether it killed a wormhole or something, and they were trapped. And not only were they trapped on one side, but they trapped and they crashed onto the planet. And so it took like an entire civilization back to like the stone or the Iron Age to go back all the way back to technology again before they could come back and like rejoin the rest of the
interesting.
Yeah, so interesting settings there. It's, you know, I would say that it's a setting that does have a little bit of use today, but it definitely presents an interesting thing that will be really fun to play and create and world build inside of.
Yeah. So I'm excited about it. I'm calling it the Avalon Project. I'm sure I'll give you guys updates as I go along. But yeah, and I kind of like the idea of crowdsourcing a lot of this, you know? Sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that, I mean, kind of big geek week for me. I've been kind of busy that way.
Dang.
Very cool.
Good for you.
Yeah. What news have we seen? Nothing big like FFG falling apart this week.
It's old news now.
Exactly. Let's see. I noticed I got a notification in my email that D&D was dropping a new source book that's coming out called The Mythic Odysseys of Theros. So this will be coming out in June, at least digitally. I'm sure it's coming out to print around then too. But it sounds like it's sort of Greek themed a little bit. It's got hydras, it's got omen-speaking oracles, it's got champions of the gods vying for immortal favor, living myths. I mean, it sounds very, Greek mythology, which is kind of interesting. I wonder. I mean, you're walking in the lands of Theros, is what it says. So it sounds like it's a new area, not necessarily the, I guess it's part of the Shadow Realm still, maybe.
I think it's an interesting idea to have supernatural, uber powerful beings that may have different agendas besides just destruction and demonic evilness. We played a few of the D&D modules where you're going up against, big time demons, and their motivations are a little shallow. So this looks really interesting. I hope somebody in our group gets it, and I hope I end up getting to play it because it looks like something to really sink your teeth into.
So here's what's interesting to me is that we had a friend who joined a Kickstarter, and it's called the Odyssey of the Dragonlords RPG. He got his stuff. I think the actual purchase for, like, if you didn't do the Kickstarter, is in pre-order, like I see it on Miniature Market, right? So it's a module that was released for 5e, and I kid you not, it like literally just came out. It is a Odyssey-style fantasy campaign drawing inspiration from the ancient Greek epics, including the Odyssey, the Iliad, and the Argonautica. So it's kind of interesting. This has what seems to be a little bit more of a Greek flavor than the other one, but I think the timing is kind of interesting that we have like two Greek supplements made by different companies for 5e coming out at the same time.
Well, and it's great to have. There's IPs out there that are very open, and so ancient mythology is a great place to plunder. There's lots of anything of a certain vintage, anything that's basically older than Mickey Mouse, you can go plunder and use as equivalent of public domain. So, the Greek stuff is great. It's cool. It's interesting, and it's not a bad fit for 5e. So, more power to them.
Yeah. Yeah, I find the timing from Wizards of the Coast kind of funny that came out like right after this did. I mean, I'm not suggesting anything, or am I?
Well, these take a while, and everybody in the industry talks to each other. And, the thing that Wizards has is their own IP, so they can make stuff up and copyright it and keep everybody else out. You take the Odyssey, you take stuff that's 3,000 or 4,000 years old. You can come out with a your own supplement tomorrow. Like the three of us could sit around and write a supplement as well that is just as good and put it out there just for people to buy. And these folks could not sue us.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. So if you're interested in Greek stuff, I highly recommend you check both of them out. The Odyssey of the Dragon Lords is the supplement that was made by a third party, and then it was the Odyssey it was called
it's Modifius Entertainment, and they put out a lot of really quality stuff.
Yep. And then the Mythic Odysseys of Theros is the one that Wizards of the Coast is making that will be out in June. So that'll be cool. A lot of godlike weapons, it says in there. That might be interesting, rolling around. Let's see what else was in it. Oh, big news yesterday for the Warhammer community. The Nova Open tickets went on sale at 8 p.m. last night, and the website was down from 8 p.m. to probably 8:20 p.m.
Something like that, yeah.
Oh man, it just kept crashing bad, and I mean I thought I was in it, and I was doing pretty good until I went to go to checkout, and then it just kept saying the service can't connect to the outside service that you're looking for. I'm like, well, that's just great. So it was really what was crashing was the payment service that the Nova Open was using. Because you could get around in the web store. It was a little difficult. It was taking a little while to load the pages, but it would pop up, and when you put your tickets in the card, it would happen, and then you go to check out, and it would just time out, bam, bam, and then it started giving you a weird code and all that stuff, and it just was
they've been cutting corners on their web stuff for a long time. They've been running the same engine for the last several years, and if you've been on their website, it's pretty jank. So considering how much money they take in for Nova Open, I'm kind of shocked that they don't have a better SaaS platform with a lot of elasticity that could handle that peak traffic. They kind of should know a little better. This is like a big growing pain where, you don't put up your website and then tell everybody to register. The day you put up, the day tickets go on sale is the day everybody's going to pile on and get those tickets that are going to sell out. So they're kind of victims of their own success here.
Let's see. There was... I'm going to spitball because I can't see the exact number right now, but I think that there was 70 tickets for doubles, and there's only 4 left for that. Now, this opened 24 hours ago, essentially. So, 66 tickets for the Age of Sigmar doubles are gone. There's 11 tickets for the Age of Sigmar Grand Tournament, and there's 150 of those tickets available. Let's see. For the Age of Sigmar RTT, there was 68 tickets available, or 64, something like that, and there's only 29 left. So you can see that those are being snatched right up. If you were looking in the market for a 40K ticket, Warhammer 40K, good luck, because I believe that the 40K tournament completely sold out at 8:45 p.m. last night. And, they've got a 3-player tournament and a 5-player team tournament, and there's only a couple tickets left on those, too. So
those are pricey, too.
Yeah, and so I mean, Jason, you want to talk about the price a little bit? It was a lot different this year.
Yeah, it's a little bit more expensive for sure. The Age of Sigmar Grand Tournament is $70
It was
for
40 last year.
yeah, and the I'll tell you, I'm not super happy with the schedule this year. I love the doubles. I think it's a lot of fun to just sit across the table from two dudes with you and your buddy and just kind of have a good time. But the doubles overlaps the RTT. It's on
Yeah.
the same day this year. And so you can't you can't do both of those. And the grand tournament is Friday to Saturday. It's kind of all on its own thing. And then they've got the War Cry on Sunday, unless of course you're in the top. What is it? Top 5?
Top 8.
Top 8. The top 8 for the GT, and then that's on Sunday too. So there's a lot of overlap. But if you think about it, I mean, this is just my opinion, right? And one thing to keep in mind is that Nova Open is a charity organization, so they donate proceeds to charity. So that's something to keep in mind. But you got to pay for a day pass, and each day's pass is what's $20, right?
$20. If you get the whole convention pass, it's 40.
I thought it was 60 if you get the whole convention
maybe it
pass.
is,
I think
actually.
it's 60, yeah.
And then events are 30, 40, 50, 60, 70
Yeah,
dollars a
and
day
that's
on
the
top.
thing, right? And so if you're going to do the GT, unless you think you're an awesome player, you could just get away with 2 days, Friday and Saturday. That's $40 plus 70, $110 just to play in a GT.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of money to play in a GT. Just my opinion, right there. And even the doubles, you're usually splitting it with the dude, so it's not that big a deal. So you're looking at $70 to play in the doubles.
Yeah.
$20 for the ticket if you're just doing that day, and then $50 for that. But so it's a good amount of money. I will say I think it's more. This is generally how I think tabletop games go, though, is they're typically more money. But my wife and I were talking about this. My wife's not a big gamer, but she's usually pretty savvy when it comes to finances and stuff like that. But she runs our house. But anyways, I just bring the money in. She figures out how it's supposed to be. Anyway, so the thing is that like when we go to Gen Con, it's like $110, I think, this year for the entire 4 days. Right, 110 was the
Yep.
price, I think. And then the events are like $2 to $6 each.
Yeah, depending.
A 4-hour board game can cost you like $4 to $6.
Yeah.
2.5 in this situation, a 2.5-hour 2-player tabletop game is going to cost you a little under $20
Yep.
at Nova Open. It's pricey, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's the venue.
Yeah,
I
the
think.
venue and space.
Yeah, they have a lot of space. They got to rent out this whole entire Hyatt, and it all feels very crowded and crammed in. So, I mean, if you walk through some of the 40K areas, it is shoulder to shoulder to shoulder to shoulder. So I don't know. I think they're definitely going through some growing pains, and
I think so. Yeah.
I like Nova Open a lot. I'm not going this year. I went for the last 3 years prior, and I'm kind of Nova Opened out. I need a break.
Yeah. I'm on the fence. I have not bought my tickets. I'm eyeing those 11 left tickets
Yeah.
right now, trying to
Yeah.
figure out what I want to do.
I am not going to Gen Con this year, so this is my
Yeah,
this
and
is
that
my
makes
convention.
sense.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
yeah. So not only am I going to the grand tournament, the doubles I'm planning. I'm also playing Warcry. I'm taking a 3-day painting seminar with Roman Lapat, which he's just an absolutely amazing display painter. I mean, you're talking about like multiple award winning guy, and there's like 25 of us in one room with him for literally, let's see, the first day goes from 2 p.m. to 9 p.m. No, sorry, 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. Second day goes from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. And then the third day goes from like 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. So we're in with that dude close proximity, and he's just walking us through a bunch of stuff. I'm so excited for it.
See, I think for you this makes sense, right? Because you've got a lot of this stuff. You're going to be with these people that you're very familiar with their work. You're going to learn a kind of understudy from them. You get to play all these games you want. You live locally, so you can travel to it. So you're gonna spend, I don't know, maybe like a little under 300, I think is something like, and tickets and all that stuff, and that's great for a con that's local, But
and I'm getting a week's worth of stuff out of it.
Yeah. If I was gonna have to drive and also put hotel on top of that and transportation, man, it would start to add up pretty quick.
Well, we did that. We did that at Las Vegas Open.
We did, and it added up pretty quick.
And my wife has told me I'm not going back to the Las Vegas Open.
It was a lot to get out there. I mean, didn't we estimate it ended up costing about $1,000?
Oh, jeez, you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a learning experience. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun for sure.
A lot of fun, but it was a grand.
Yep, a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, so Nova Open out there. If you guys are still on the fence about tickets, you just got to realize that they are going fast.
I will say that last time I played a Nova Open, every one that was running the show was really cool. I think I went to, Justin, you went too. We went to a terrain building day because it's local to us. You know, we could go kind of help them actually make terrain for the games, and that was really cool. So these guys really are humble people that are just kind of trying to put it together. It's not like they're they're not paying their own salaries off of this thing.
Right.
I'd agree.
And they're all volunteers. They're all literally volunteers. We game with some of these guys. Like James was running the terrain for the Age of Sigmar.
Yeah.
Yeah, the judging of all the events that I've dealt with, everybody's been super cool. And getting people to judge events for 10 or 12 hour long event for a grand tournament.
Yeah.
That's a huge sacrifice of time. It's in the heat of battle, quite literally, and you have to be up on all the rules, and you have to be the guy who has to say you're right and you're wrong. And that takes that to do for fun as a volunteer is I take my hats off to those guys, because you can't have tournaments without judging. So, you can't have, a car without four wheels. They're definitely essential to the hobby.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate all the volunteers, because it's literally volunteers. I mean, I don't think they really get anything out of it. Like, not even like a goodie bag that they hand out to, the people who registered early. I would think they'd at least get something like that, right? But...
so my first year at Nova Open, I got the second tier goodie bag, and it was amazing just because I was one of the first 500 people to sign on. So they've had to shrink their goodie bags and stuff like that recently. Nonetheless, they're a pretty classy shop. For me, the reason why I'm not going is just because the mental exhaustion of taking time off of work while work is still producing stress pressure, and I'm in a basement, with no cell service and no Wi-Fi, playing games I'm losing left and right at all day long is pretty taxing. Is much more taxing mentally than Gen Con is.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll keep you updated as we get a little bit closer. In fact, I've got some Age of Sigmar buddies that are probably going to come on in the next couple podcasts to talk about some of the different conventions that are coming up, and we want to broach some topics like, what does it take to go to a wargaming convention? Is it different than like a board game convention and all that stuff? So I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, they are not the same.
Yeah, exactly.
They
are not.
And if you haven't done one and you've done the other and you want to check it out, talk to somebody or listen to a podcast where you've got people that try all that stuff and get their pointers.
Yeah, absolutely. So the last thing I want to bring up that sort of leads us into our final topic of the night is I saw a pretty sweet Kickstarter. It's called Storm Sunder: Heirs of Ruin. It's a story-based solo/cooperative RPG board game. So, those usually tell me, think Gloomhaven, think Descent, Journeys into the Dark, think the Lord of the Rings. What's that called, Dan? Lord of the Rings?
Journeys in Middle-earth.
Journeys in Middle-earth, yep. So it's a board game for 1 to 4 players, and some of these sculpts that they have for the miniatures, and I don't know if you guys have noticed this, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, but there's hardly any games that don't come out with miniatures now. It seems to be that's really what's fueling a lot of the Kickstarter projects, or the miniatures that you get with it. But these ones are particularly amazing, and I was just drooling over them. I wanted to paint them so bad. And even though I've got literally a whole desk in front of me of a bunch of orcs that I need to paint, but these ones just really caught my eye. It was really awesome. Again, it's called Storm Sunder. We'll put it again in the comments of the thing. Check it out. The first level of pledge is $149, but you get a bunch of stuff.
It's a pretty standard price for something with that many minis in it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Nowadays.
Yeah.
I will say this though: you got to watch your shipping, because it's been a big issue on Kickstarter now. Is these guys make these games and they realize they get hit with these giant shipping costs later, and they either have to take a hit or they have to pass it on. And when you're looking at these guys who are raising, close to $1 million, and they've got hundreds of backers, they can't absorb the shipping. They've got to push it. Yeah. But that said, I think these kinds of games can be worth even the shipping costs that you have to pay for the quality that you're going to get out of these.
So let's kind of get into it. We can address that a little bit more, but let's get into Kickstarter. That's sort of our topic of the night. So, if you've been living under a rock, Kickstarter is a crowdfunding platform which essentially allows people to, if you have an idea for a project, you can put money towards it and it fully funds it. And then usually, you incentivize more people by doing stretch goals, which unlocks, more minis or more content to the game, or, depending on whatever you do. And your goal, you set a goal, and if you meet that goal, then you're fully funded, and technically you're supposed to deliver on all of your stuff and send it out to everybody. And if you exceed that goal quite a bit, congratulations, you had a very successful Kickstarter. For example, the Storm Sunder, it still has 61 hours to go. Its goal was $90,000, and they have $619,000 pledged towards their goal. So, that's over 6 times what they had planned, and I'm going to credit that to the minis. But Kickstarter, I used Kickstarter once, actually, when I was starting my own chocolate company. We needed to get some equipment for the production of chocolate, and we needed about $2,500. We set a goal of $2,500, and we were bribing people with chocolate bars and all that stuff, and we got the money that we needed. We begged, borrowed, and pleaded. I don't think our project was super sexy. Again, this was in 2011 though, and I think the idea of crowdfunding something was still relatively new then.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for my lifetime supply of chocolate delivery.
Well, you're
for backing that.
The check's in the mail.
Mr. Wonka, you promised this boy a lifetime supply of chocolate.
I'm gonna be honest with you. This is not a lifetime of my lifetime's worth of chocolate.
Good day, sir. I said good day.
So
Kickstarter. So for the people that have been living under a rock, or for if this digital file makes it into the next century, they'll go, oh, that sounds interesting. So some of them that I've supported have been successful and cool, and it's a great way for somebody to put out a product that would be very hard to get venture capital, but does have a market. And Kickstarter has been really great to the gaming community. Usually everybody has a positive experience and a negative experience with Kickstarter. I spent a bunch of money on magnetic X-Wing mats that I own and don't use, but I think they're cool, and I don't use them for space reasons, less functionality reasons. But I also, 3 years ago, put in for an RPG that I'm still waiting for. And this guy keeps emailing us, and now there's PDF chapters online, and he got bought out by another company that's helping him fulfill his Kickstarter. So there's even this sub-market of
3
companies.
years, huh? Wow.
Yeah, 3 years. It was May of 2017, and since that time, because it was a generic kind of RPG that's, IP neutral, and since that time, Fantasy Flight Games came out with one, and they've already published 3 or 4 products, and I've bought all of those, and I play that game all the time, and I'm playing that game on Friday. So the odds of me playing this RPG when it finally shows up are kind of slim to none. I'd be happy to figure out a giveaway contest in Guild 9 Gaming or for Beyond Tabletop Beyond listeners. So, long story short, stuff doesn't happen the way you expect.
Yeah.
Always
Yeah.
with a Kickstarter.
Now, what I find interesting is, like I said, I was using Kickstarter in 2011. But I feel like in the gaming community, and this is my opinion here, just based on my astute observational skills and very little internet research, it seems like a lot of the gaming Kickstarter stuff sort of took off when Cool Minis or Not, CMON put out some of their really top grossing games. You're talking about Zombicide, you're talking about Rising Sun, you're talking about Rage, you're talking about what was some of the other ones, that Viking one that they had, Blood something. Anyway, my point is that Cool Minis or Not seems to be putting out, like, they'll put out a Kickstarter every year, and they'll literally pull in millions of dollars for that game, right? And they'll have like a goal of like $30,000, and then they'll pull in like $10 million for the game, and it's ridiculous. But I think that has inspired many other people to go do it. So I'm looking at Kingdom Death Monster, which is the highest, best performing tabletop game on Kickstarter. Guess how much it made? Roundabout.
I have no idea.
2019, November 29, 2019. No. That was when it was updated. It came out 2 years ago, year and a half ago. Take a guess. Just wild ballpark.
Go, Dan.
5 million.
More.
10.
More.
20.
25.
40.
It was $12.3 million that they got for that game.
Jeez.
And I mean, that sounds like a lot of money, but that also means a lot of production too, right? And that's where a lot of costs go. But I think what happens is a game developer, especially like sort of like middle of the road gaming companies, like maybe not too big, some that can produce quality games, but they're not big enough to be sort of their own publishers. At this point, it feels like Cool Minis or Not in the board game arena can print their own money. I mean, they're not Milton Bradley and can print Monopoly money, but, it's still essentially the same fact.
Yeah.
I'm on Kickstarter right now, and CMON, the company you mentioned, is
Yep.
putting out a Marvel title.
Oh, yeah.
Like a serious IP, gamer game with a really compelling, cartoony, kidsy graphics with awesome minis, and I'm like, you're talking, and I'm all looking for my credit card here. I'm not even joking. I'm like, heck. But there's a reason why board games took off on Kickstarter, mainly because a board game is very capital intensive to start up, and if you don't know what your market is and you don't know how many you need to send off for a print run, you have to come out. In the old days, you had to come out of pocket really, really deep. Well, now you can put together an awesome idea, render it three-dimensionally, put it out there, and let's say you only have 300 or 400 people that want it. They still get the game. I mean, I remember, Jason, you introduced a Kickstarter board game to me. You're like, hey, I really like this guy. He's got great artwork, and he has interesting ideas for games. And I was like, holy crap, this is a totally new way of inverting the Hasbro Milton Bradley model.
Yeah, that was
which
Red
is
Raven.
Hasbro
Red
is
Raven Games.
Yes, and they're great. And what all Hasbro's going to do is try to figure out a new way to skin Monopoly, because Monopoly sells. Well, this is the exact opposite. Come up with a new type of board game type and put it out there, and don't go into bankruptcy because you're passionate about your board game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, you had to either come out of pocket in your own money or convince a gaming company to do it for you, right? You had to go take it to Milton Bradley. My uncle used to design a lot of board games, and he would take them to company after company, and they just like never had legs, right? And I think it's because there's really, I mean, some of these games are sort of pushing the edge. Like I'm looking at Dark Souls here, right? That got funded when it came out. Dark Souls, the board game, and it earned 3.7 million pounds. So that's like, I don't know, 4 point something million dollars. And anyway, that's got like a pretty strong following in the video game IP, but like, to kind of take a chance on saying like, we're gonna really invest a lot of time and money in the miniatures and the mechanics of this game to make it feel like the video game. That takes in the back in the old days, that took a company having faith that they were going to make money, that there was enough of a following of a Dark Souls community that would carry this IP. Now with Kickstarter, you don't have to worry about it. You find those people and they find you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After you make all your money, after you do your Kickstarter run, everything else that you sell after that can be profit. Because you sell 1,000 over Kickstarter and you do a run of 2,000, but the Kickstarter paid for your 2,000. And so your back stock of unknown buyers, you push those out. You sell them because everyone you sell is money directly in your pocket. It's very elegant, this whole internet economy.
It is. It's an
awesome.
economies of scale as well. I will say that there's one thing about being in I'm an engineer and I work in a product sector, and there's parts that a lot of people don't understand. They look at these Kickstarters and think, oh my gosh, they put out this board game and maybe I only need 100,000, but I made $1 million, and that's amazing. And the problem is that now you have to scale your production to do $1 million in about the same time frame that you planned just to do 100,000 worth of revenue in.
Oh yeah.
And there are some
the engineer
major
here.
manufacturing challenges in being able to scale in that same time span.
Yeah.
And that's why, some of these board games that I've run on Kickstarter, they're like, when you first do the campaign, they're like, yeah, we're looking at like maybe an 8-month cycle before, we can get them on the boat to you. And a year and a half later, they're like, yeah, we're just starting to get the first boats scheduled to pick up the first shipment from the factory, because they haven't been able to ramp up the production at the gaming print facilities, even overseas for that. So there's some major challenges. Companies like CMON who have been doing this, they've figured it out, right? They've got it. They know what's happening. They know what it's going to take. You look at these onesie two-man shops that it's like it's their second game they've made. It's the first time they've ever had this scale. I think Kickstarter is great. You just have to be prepared as an end user of Kickstarter to let the company go through those growing pains and realize it may take you a while before you get that game. And then think in your head, 9 months from now, am I still going to care about this?
Yeah. That's a great question to ask.
Yeah.
That's a great question to ask. And I was going to point out, you had talked about shipping issues earlier, another wrinkle to that, not only just in the scaling production, shipping issues, right, in terms of having to pay for it, but the third aspect of it is that it used to be that you could that China was the promised land for printing all of these board games and miniatures, and it still is to a certain effect, to a certain extent, but the costs of printing and shipping have gone up dramatically within the last 2 years, like a ton. We backed a Kickstarter for Shadow of the Demon Lord, Jason, and the big thing is that they offered a buy at cost hard book version that you could get because the cost of shipping and printing in China went up so much that it would have eaten up more than what the Kickstarter was worth.
Yeah.
So I think that, where Kickstarter really succeeded is that you, as a game designer, you, linked up with your fans, right, pretty easily. And they gave you money, so you didn't have to come out of pocket. You could have some time, a lot of these games in here, you're like, okay, like that, the game that I shared earlier, the Storm Thunder, it's saying that it's ready to ship March 2022. So we're talking 2 years from now is when that game will be out, So you can give yourself time to fully develop it and really kind of hopefully scale up that production. So there's going to be a lot of time. And you made a great point about, am I going to care about this game then? And then now, though, the cost is going up about shipping. It used to be that you could save a lot of money by exporting it. I don't know if you can save as much now. I think those margins have been cut quite a bit.
Yeah, well, there's also the worry. There was just with the current countries, and we're not going to get into politics at all, but the current countries, trade policies slowed things down too. When the deep madness second printing was coming to me, it paused for a bit as they were trying to just trying to interpret the law and figure out if there were going to be effects on the shipping that happened. So there's just all sorts of things that can happen, but that's life. You just have to. Yeah. It's not the same as just buying something on Amazon and having it 2 days shipped to you.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And even if you don't back the Kickstarter, you see this game, you're like, oh my gosh, I really want to play this, and then it's going to be, it like if you don't back the Kickstarter, instead of waiting 2 years for it, you're going to have to wait 3. For it to get printed again.
That's another thing, is it creates a very strange new kinds of scarcity, which is you're either on the boat with Kickstarter or you're not, because they owe you and they know it. But then everybody else is like, yeah, I'd like to play that game. Well, we'll do that on the second run. And, there's stuff that comes and goes that never makes it out to the market. It was just the Kickstarter. And so,
I've got a couple of those in my closet.
Oh, yeah. And you got to ask yourself. You got to say, okay, well, I'm going to put the money up front. I'm going to wait a year, and then we'll see what happens. And it's like, I don't know. And sometimes it's not the best fit for your gaming. Some people have a pipeline of Kickstarters they have going, so they can wait a year because the thing they ordered last year is starting to show up. It's like, and then it feels like something they got for free because they spent that money a year ago.
Yeah. Yep. I used to do that. I used to have my Kickstarter pipeline, and I'd have at least one in the pipe at all times. And then I just kind of slowed down. I think it's a great thing, just to get back to it. It definitely provides a way to enable these smaller people who have ideas and maybe even invest a little bit in their own to get some marketing materials, just some concepts out there, and just test the waters. There's almost beyond your time, right, and a little bit out of your own pocket. It's a very much a small investment up front to see if this thing is worth producing.
Right. Yeah, and especially now with like 3D printers and and everybody can have Adobe Acrobat that or Illustrator that can make nice books, you know what I mean, and get them self printed. I mean, you could come up with some really good demo copies. I mean, how many booths and tables did we see at Gen Con where they're like, well, this is a test game and we're gonna go on Kickstarter, so be looking for us, and I mean, like, you see those all the time.
Well, and we live in the golden age of three-dimensional minis. I hate to break the news to you. I mean, I was around in the 80s when companies like Grenadier would have to cast minis in, with different metallic alloys, pewter, and so forth. And getting a hold of decent minis was tough. And now the minis that people just make in their own front rooms are just amazing compared to what we had in the 1980s. So I think we really are spoiled with riches when it comes to three-dimensional gaming components.
Yeah, for sure.
And Kickstarter, just a little piece of news that dates this show, but the Kickstarter employees officially voted to unionize because they got into a disagreement with management over what Kickstarters should or shouldn't be put out there based on their community standards. So I'll let you all read up about that. But it just goes to show that, Kickstarter is a small company. They have, less than 100 employees, but they did have to fire a couple people, or they did not have to fire. The quite opposite. They chose to fire a couple employees who were trying to organize a union, and they got the federal government involved. So, different kinds of growing pains. Kickstarter, like you said, you were using this in 2011, Justin, and I know Jay's been pulling board games down since about that era as well. But now it's a real platform that people can put a business case around, and the companies that do this type of crowdfunding have really matured, which means they're unionizing. These aren't just startups full of a merry band of a dozen folks that believe in the big idea. This is people's livelihoods are associated with the way these companies run.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting and pretty serious growing pains when Uncle Sam has to get involved.
Oh yeah.
So,
no
anyway,
comment.
Thank you guys so much for joining us for our discussion on Kickstarter and a lot of other things today. It's kind of a longer episode. I know we were gone for about 2 weeks, so we had a lot to talk about. And just as sort of a preview spoiler, I think I haven't talked about this with Dan and Jason yet, but I'm going to start a Facebook page that we can maybe get some other things and links and stuff going. We do have a Guild 9 Gaming one, but I thought it would be nice to have an actual tabletop and beyond that we can discuss the episodes and kind of get that going. So I'm going to make that as part of the Guild 9 Gaming sort of platform. And we'll get that out there. What's that?
It's an ecosystem.
It's an ecosystem. It absolutely is. So how can we get feedback if we don't have a place for them to give feedback? That was my thought earlier today.
Damn tootin'.
Yeah. So, anyway, thank you very much for listening. On behalf of everybody here, have a good night.
All right.
Yep. See you guys.